Hello, my name is Phyllis Lee. I am the Senior Director for CIS, the Center for Internet Security. Prior to CIS, I worked at the NSA, no such agency, for around 25 years. I loved my time there. It was great. I decided that I wanted to have more flexibility in my schedule and work at home, so I came here to this small but mighty nonprofit. And it worked out well for me because there just happened to be a pandemic, and then my children were learning at home, so I was very fortunate. And so CIS is a great place to work. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the controls and our benchmarks, some of the services that we provide, such as mappings. Then Tim Sandage is going to come up here and talk about some of the offerings that AWS provides when it comes to secure configuration guides and how we work with them. So what is CIS? So we are a small, like I said, small but mighty nonprofit. And we have two major business lines at CIS. I'll cover our operational arm, which is the MS-ISAC, Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Within the Multi-State ISAC, we have the EI-ISAC, Elections Infrastructure Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Those organizations provide threat intel, threat prevention, as well as incident response and recovery for the MS-ISAC to state, local, tribal, and territory, and for the elections infrastructure to, of course, the elections folks. What's interesting, I think, to note about this is that even though elections are state-run, elections infrastructure is managed differently than the state. So just like internally how we have our different ways that we govern our cybersecurity, same thing with state. No surprise there, that's the way the US government works at times. MS-ISAC and EI-ISAC are fully funded by DHS. That money is managed by CISA. We are the only ISAC that is federally funded. So in some essence, we are an extension of the federal government. The side of the house that I work on is security best practices. So we create the CIS critical security controls, set of activities for organizations to perform on their network to help defend against threats, as well as our benchmarks, which is our secure configuration guides. You'll see our mission is there to create cybersecurity best practices, and of course, we do that through communities. So how do we create our best practices, and what is it that we do overall? If you'll see here, we are, there are many frameworks out there, there are many benchmarks out there. For us within CIS, we are an independent third party. We bring communities together, we bring experts together to create our best practices guidance. What's nice is that we have that operational arm. So we have the MS-ISAC and EI-ISAC. They provide trending data every month. What are the top threats? We can look at that data and we can say, are our best practices up to date? Do we need to add anything? Are we aging out some of our best practices? For example, is our password policy guidance old? Do we need to do a refresh and update that? So it's nice. Is there a new threat factor that we really need to think about? And so it's nice to have that operational arm. That offense informs our defense, and we can create our best practices. We work, of course, with the community as well. So why CIS? One of the things I loved about CIS when I came from government, when you show up at someone's doorstep and say, hi, I'm from NSA, I'm here to help. It's like a little bit of a different reaction at times, depending on who you approach. At CIS, we really have a great brand name, and why is that? Why is it that the CIS critical security controls that are not a regulatory framework, they're not mandated by the government or by a foreign government, and the CIS benchmarks as well, not necessarily mandated, but pointed to by other regulatory frameworks, why is it that so many organizations use our best practices? And so, what is it that we do that's unique to us? Number one, we have communities of experts, like many of you in this room, that come together to help create our best practices. I'm really amazed also by this. Honestly, when I created Controls version 8 and I led that community, we had so many people who wanted to come to the table and work with us. Likewise, on the benchmarks team, when we create, for example, an AWS benchmark, a Microsoft benchmark, whatever have you, Linux, Red Hat. Those organizations come to the table and they help us. So what's great is we actually have those subject matter experts from those organizations, from those companies that come. But we're there to moderate that community. We want to make sure that our guiding principles are always kept throughout every community, so it's not dominated by one vendor or not dominated by one voice. So we're there to make sure that everything that we create is consensus-based. Consensus does not mean 100% agreement, of course, but that everything at the end of the day is useful and practical for end organizations, and the majority of the group agrees upon. Did I not? Okay. So what are the critical security controls, or the CIS controls, for those of you who are unfamiliar? Like I said earlier, it's a prioritized set of activities organizations can perform on their network to help defend against top threats. We actually did the work to back this by data, which I'll get into later. It is prioritized, which is nice. So many frameworks, such as like PCI or NIST CSF or the 800-171 or something like that, they really don't tell you what to do first, other than please do everything, please do it well, so you'll pass your audit. Controls are different than that. We realize that not all organizations are well-resourced. Even those well-resourced organizations, such as big banks or big manufacturers, no one can put out or complete a framework within 1 year, right? It's a several-year experience, we understand that. And so what we really wanted to do was make sure that organizations, regardless of size, can implement the controls. They are globally recognized. You'll see us referenced in international standard bodies, such as ETSI or ITU. Right now, like 60% of the downloads that we receive, or that people actually try to download our controls, are international, which I think is a very cool stat. And like I said, just last year, we worked on and released Controls version 8. So how have the controls evolved? This is kind of a humorous slide, but true, right? 5 geeks in a room. So originally, Tony Sager, when he was at the NSA, was asked, hey, what are the top 10 things you would do to help defend against your network? Because DoD wants to spend money, let's prioritize how that money is spent. And it literally was a few people in a room saying, hey, this worked out for us, this worked out for us, and then they wrote that down. At that time, Alan Paller was in charge of SANS. They sent that over to SANS. SANS, of course, has a huge follower base. They have a megaphone. They sent that out to 5,000 of their closest friends and got their opinions. We were able to gather that together, and you came up with the SANS Top 20. And then a few years ago, SANS spit off a small nonprofit called CIS, and the controls came with CIS. And so today, how have we evolved that? We really want to back those choices by data. And organizations really want to know, hey, not that I implement this control well. I mean, that's part of the equation, especially if you're going to get audited, but they want to know, what did I defend against? Did I defend against ransomware? What can I tell my board? How can I tell my board I need to invest in this security product or in this process? What can I say as far as defending against top threats? And so we have evolved that to actually show with data that if you implement controls, you can defend against top threats, and then how effectively you can defend against those top threats. So that's pretty cool, because we're the only framework that I know of to date that does that. So what was new in Controls version 8? Of course, we updated it to include new technologies such as cloud as mobile, and it was actually pretty timely, because during the time that we were actually creating the controls, and that was in 2020, there was a pandemic, and there, you saw wholesale move to cloud and mobile and home networking. At that point, it was already obvious. There is no boundary. I was in a talk, someone said, the end of the boundary is at the end of your finger's user tip. The end of your finger's your user's fingertips, right? And so we really had to take that into account, especially given the pandemic and work at home. I know everyone at my organization, we're all teleworking. And so we really combined redundant safeguards because a lot of the safeguards and controls were organized by activity. Like, for example, this is what your typical admin would administer on endpoint, so that was a control. Your network administrator, so that was a control. And so we consolidated. So something like audit logging, which you would find dispersed throughout all the controls, we combined to create an audit logging control. And so that resulted in 3 controls being removed, 1 control being added, and so now we are the top 18, essential 18. We'll give out prizes if someone has some sort of good, alliteration around our controls, but we're now the CIS controls with 18 controls. Now 153 safeguards. And so, what's interesting to note is that the group felt strongly that we needed a new control around service provider management. Again, another nod to, why are you guys at this conference? Because more and more organizations are relying on cloud services for their infrastructure, for their endpoints, whatever your needs are, right? And so what we need to do is really help organizations manage their service providers. And this speaks to supply chain as well. This actual control has been wildly popular. People are very excited. I work with a lot of MSPs. They're pretty excited that this control is in there as well. And so you'll see here the top 18 controls. If any of you are familiar with the controls, there was some reordering done. So if you look at controls 1, 2, and 3, it really is like know your environment. So control 1, enterprise asset management. We changed that from hardware asset management just as an FYI because of cloud, right? Not everything is a piece of hardware, but you still need to manage that asset. Of course, software assets, know what's on your network, know what software is on those nodes on your network, and then find out where your critical data is, right? And then once you know those 3 things, once you know your environment, then apply the rest of these security controls accordingly. Now, arguably, everyone says to me, the hardest things they have to do are controls 1, 2, and 3. And they're like, Phyllis, can you tell me but tell me the 5 things that I need to do. And excluding those top 3, right? Because those are pretty hard. And so, what I want to say is those are important. You must know your environment, and we don't expect you to do it perfectly. This is a journey. You can iterate over time, but at the very least, please get started. And it's expensive to not know where your critical data is, and then to try to apply these controls everywhere. Through our research, we found out the number 1 thing you can do after knowing your environment is have a secure configuration. So if you want to defend against top threats, the next thing you should do is have a secure configuration. So you can see the rest of the controls and how they roll out. So what are the goals of the critical security controls? And I think these are important as well because I always think, why is it that organizations will want to use the controls? And part of this, these goals really are based on feedback that we get. Number 1, we want to know what you want us to do, right? So our controls are fairly prescriptive. And I think it's important to be clear because other frameworks are written more so at a high level, sometimes on purpose. Something like in NIST CSF that has to work across all the verticals was written at that level on purpose, right? 1 ask per safeguard, and that really also speaks to the next bullet, measurability. How do I know if I implemented this safeguard properly? What is it that I need to do to make sure that I get a pass on this or whatever? Prioritize. Many organizations have asked us, where do I start? Do I start at 1? Do I start at 2? It used to be the first 6 when we did our prioritization. And then what we found is that organizations really listened to us, and it was like 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. By the time you got to, which was control 10, which is data recovery, I mean, you were like well into a year into your program before you thought about backup plans. And we thought, oh no, that's not right, right? As security practitioners, we just assumed people were kind of reading these along and like doing the top couple. And so that's when we created our new implementation scheme, implementation groups, which we'll go into later. But it's important to provide that prioritization to those end organizations. And of course, we created something called the community defense model to back those choices, to not say, hey, we think these are good ideas, but these actual safeguards will help you defend against top threats. And so what are implementation groups? Implementation groups are our new prioritization scheme. There are 3. We're calling IG1 Essential Cyber Hygiene. We recommend all organizations, regardless of size, start with IG1. IG1 is really aimed towards organizations that don't have to protect high-value data and don't have a lot of cybersecurity expertise. So it's really aimed at those small, medium enterprises. However, I will tell you, like I said, we worked with Fortune 100 top manufacturing organization, and they really liked the IGs, and they wanted to start off with Implementation Group 1 because they really had not started on their cybersecurity journey, right? And so I think it's important to realize that not all organizations are resourced to put something out all at once. And so Implementation Group 1, start here. Implementation Group 2 is for larger organizations that are subject to some regulation and a lot more attacks and definitely have high-value data to protect. Implementation Group 3 is for an organization such as like Chase or Goldman Sachs. They're subject to hundreds probably of regulations. They certainly have high-value data and they are targeted. And so the expectation is that an organization like that is going to implement all the controls. And so that brings us to benchmarks. Like I said, the #1 thing you can do to help protect against top threats is have a secure configuration. All the data points to that. And so here we have our CIS benchmarks, which is our secure configurations. We have over 100 benchmarks. Like I said, we're small, so what's amazing is that we have such a large volunteer community who's willing to help us, lend their expertise, and help us update all of our benchmarks. We work within the ecosystem. We have DISA STIG compliant configuration guides, and you can see the other frameworks that recognize us. Of course, we are community-based, and of course, they also, on the benchmarks team, are prescriptive, right? They want organizations to understand what the configuration setting is actually doing, why have we chosen that, what the impact is, and where it is you can actually find that configuration setting. And of course, they map it to the controls. So CIS benchmarks and CIS controls are not necessarily regulatory frameworks that are mandated by the federal government or state government. But what we do want to do is work within the community, right? We don't want to cause confusion. We don't want to, go against any other guidance. We want to work within that guidance and help clarify for end organizations what it is that you should be doing, right? What we don't want to do is make things murkier. There's a lot of guidance out there, so we want to make it clear. So that's why, we have DoD STIG compliant benchmarks. If you have a CIS benchmark, you like CIS benchmarks, here, you can also be STIG compliant, and this is how you become STIG compliant. Same thing with controls, right? Many organizations who use the controls are subject to all of these things here, like HIPAA, COBIT, ISO, right? And so if you implement the CIS controls, what we don't want you to do is have to go and implement those same controls if you want to be ISO compliant or CMMC that everyone is talking about. What we want to do is say, hey, implement once, count it many times. And this is how you know you've implemented it properly, right? And so we provide all these mappings to the different frameworks. And so how did we make our choices? When we talk about Implementation Group 1 and we can say, yep, implement the subset, these 56 safeguards. How did we come up with that? How do we feel good about that? What we did is we looked at what are the top 5 threats. And we looked at reports across the world from ENISA, which is global, of course, a Verizon data breach report, CrowdStrike. I would say dozens of threat reports we looked at. And the interesting thing is the top 5 threats are pretty much the same, perhaps called differently. The names that we use are consistent with what the Verizon data breach report describes as attacks. And what's also interesting is for the past 5 to 8 years, those top 5 threats have not changed. They have changed perhaps in order, like maybe one year ransomware is #1 and malware is #2, but the top 5 attack types have not changed. So I think that really, really says a lot about when you go to make choices, when you go to implement something, you really want something that's sustainable, right? And it's always like kind of going back to the basics. Those same things are really going to help you defend against your networks from year to year to year to year. So what are those? What were the results? So here are the top 5 attacks. And what we can now definitively say is that if you implement implementation group 1, these 56 safeguards, you can defend against these top attacks. So quickly, how did we do that? We found those top attacks. I don't know how many people are familiar with MITRE ATT&CK. So what we did was we created the attack patterns in those attacks. We did not create them ourselves within my team. We don't have that kind of expertise. Instead, we relied on other organizations such as MSISAC. Who else gave us? Maybe CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike gave us an attack pattern. And those attack patterns were described with MITRE, the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So we're all using the same language. And so then what we did is we mapped our safeguards as mitigations to those attack techniques. And then we could say definitively that we could defend against these attacks. So what you see is the efficacy of implementation group 1 to defend against these top attacks, which they're pretty good stats. And then of course, more better is more better in this case. If you implement all the safeguards, then you're well into the 90s, which is pretty nice. So these are very exciting results for us. This is a CDM version 2.0 is for controls version 8. And so we feel we're pretty excited. We're the only framework, I believe, that has done this work as well. And so for organizations that are more sophisticated, they really liked this work because it helps them within, kind of their risk planning, et cetera. And so now I want to hand it over to Tim.
All righty. Well, thank you. That was awesome.
Sure.
Well, hello, everybody. How are you guys? Man, it's blinding up here. Ooh.
It is. You can't see anything.
So I'm Tim Sanage. I'm a senior manager. I run a security and compliance partner team, meaning we work with partners within the AWS Amazon partner network that help our partners and customers go and treat these various controls. So a lot of the programs that we run is, we really help organizations get through things like FedRAMP, things like DoD, CMMC, and so forth. So as you'll see, we partner quite a bit with CIS on a lot of the stuff that we do, and especially sponsor a lot of the different benchmarks that you probably either have used or heard about within AWS. So some of those that we have integrated into our programs are obviously, various Linux, the AWS Foundations benchmark. I worked on that personally on the very first iteration of that. It's probably been the most popular benchmark that's ever been downloaded from CIS, or so I've been told. It's one of those things that, again, we have a lot of best practices within AWS on how to secure and do different things in the environment. But the nice thing about having a third-party, nonprofit, consensus-based organization such as CIS is that people believe in it. They say, hey, this was built by the community. And yes, as I've said, a lot of us at AWS have contributed to these, and in some cases have even sponsored them, even like our user compute services that we did as a result of the pandemic, and then the EKS one. So like I said, one of our primary program goals, or what we do in my team, is we help our partners meet various regulatory responsibilities. And we break this out by 3 different categories or areas. And so that's really like public sector is kind of really what started our program, because one of the reasons why we have this program is about 5 years ago, we kept having everybody, partners come to us and say, hey, we need to put our, SaaS or our cloud product through FedRAMP or through DoD SRG or through some various regulatory, certification accreditation. And so the issue was, they were struggling with how do we do it? How do we, figure out how we configure EC2 or S3 or EBS to meet all of these various controls that were written in a control framework that wasn't built for cloud. So that was really where we started, was how do we make sure that we help our customers and our partners get through these highly regulated certifications, especially in the public sector. So that was what really started this program. And proudly we have, I think, last I looked, 182 FedRAMP authorities to operate on AWS as a partner community. So that's pretty significant when you think that there's only about 260 total FedRAMP authority to operate out there. So we have obviously the large majority of them, and our team has been, paramount in helping get those certifications done. The other area that we've really been branching out to in the last few years, and it's really because healthcare and financial services has just exploded. The amount of HITRUST or HIPAA alignments, or whether it's SOC 2s or ISOs or different things that we've been helping on, is just been, substantial. And so that's really how our team is broken out, is to really make sure that we can help not only in the public sector, the healthcare sector, life science, financial services, and then what we're actually in the middle of doing right now is really expanding globally. And so we're doing a lot in Australia with IRAP. We're doing a lot in Europe and other parts of Asia, Canada, Protected B, and so forth. So we're developing partners that can help treat these various, regulatory requirements across the globe using this same blueprint that we developed here. And so, like I said, a lot of it really is based on the work that we've done with CIS. And then because of the work that we've done with CIS, with the various benchmarks and the controls and so forth, we've integrated a lot of their solutions or services into AWS solutions. And so as you can see, Inspector uses it, Security Hub, Audit Manager, Config, and then AIMS, our managed service. And so this is another really great partnership between, again, a nonprofit trusted partner that's got a consensus-based respect in the industry. Now we can basically make sure that we're integrating not only this with our services within AWS, but we're also integrating with the various partners and so forth in our programs. So as we talk about it, who are our partners? How many people, sorry, I'm blinded. How many people are in our ATO on AWS program or in our, do I have any other partners other than CIS? But a lot of our partners are, they're Amazon Partner Network, but they're focused on security or compliance. And so, we start with our ISVs, our technology partners. Really we have, CIS is considered a technology partner, but we have things like Trend Micro, CrowdStrike, Splunk, some of these various different technologies that we know are fit for purpose for helping our partners and our customers get through regulated workloads. Then we have third-party assessment organizations. So, those are really, especially in the FedRAMP or DoD space, those are really like your Coalfires, your Kratos Secure Info, A-Line, some of those, they're actually what's called third-party assessors that have to be certified to be able to certify others in FedRAMP. Then we have system integrators, obviously your big SIs or smaller SIs. So we've got SMX, or we've got other smaller ones that are very boutique related, so that they can actually, manage and also integrate the various services and capabilities within there. And then we obviously have traditional security consultants in our programs. And so this is really, how we go to market with our partners, but we also make sure that we build repeatable security stacks, leveraging things like the CIS benchmarks and the critical controls, and then various different services from both AWS as well as technology solutions to make sure that we have predefined security stacks to be able to help our customers and our partners get through regulated workloads. I guess we got a duplicate slide, or no, I guess, this is our team. Sorry, it looked like a duplicate slide again. So really, who is my team? So our team is actually made up of a lot of security practitioners, former auditors, former advisors. So myself, I came from the 3PAO space, from the FedRAMP space, retired from the Air Force, running both classified and unclassified networks. A lot of my team came from the audit world, or they came from the advisory world. I've got 4 HITRUST auditors on the team. We just sent 5 of them through ISO audit training. We have 6 of us that were all in the FedRAMP space or the DoD space. So really we have a very focused group of people that were at a point in time practitioners, consultants, had the capabilities of building these secure and compliant workloads in AWS. I actually, when I started at AWS, I worked internally on the security and compliance team and helped AWS get through our first FedRAMP and DoD certifications when I started here, close to 10 years ago. So we've got a lot of expertise. Obviously, one of our key elements is that we I always call ourselves a little bit of a free consultant because we're here to help advise and guide and help our partners and our customers, start their journey when they're working through a regulated workload. But we're not necessarily hands-on. We're not necessarily the people that are going to be on keyboard and helping you do that. That's why we work through partners in our partner community within our program, is that we introduce you to the right partners and the right capabilities that those partners can help you as you work through that regulated journey. So with that, I think we've buzzed through this pretty quick today. So we're going to have a little bit of a limitations for questions, but we can open it up for questions. If you do have it, just please speak loud and I can repeat it so that everybody can hear you. Any questions, comments? It's like we need to turn the lights around to you guys because it's blinding up here.
There's a question right there.
Oh, that's why where? Oh, there you are. So Phyllis can probably answer that. She knows how to get into the benchmarks and
Yeah, sure.
sign up.
Yeah, sure. Number one, you can email me if my email contact is there, or if you go to the CIsecurity.org website. I mean, we really can't see anybody up here.
Yeah.
If you go to the CIsecurity.org website, you can figure out what communities you want to join. So there's the controls community. Within controls, we have lots of different, ICS, Cloud Companion Guide, mobile. And that's managed through our custom tool called Workbench. And then there are also different kinds of configuration guides. And so what I didn't say is, what I think is important is we often listen to feedback from end organizations using our tooling, using our guidance, et cetera, and we really take that seriously. So I would encourage you to go in there, look at the communities, and make comments like, this is not working for me, this is working for me,
Yeah.
Could you create this kind of guide? I mean, when I first came to CIS, we didn't have a Cloud Companion Guide, but that was in demand. So I was like, okay, let's take these controls and let's apply them to cloud. And the person who helped us now works at AWS, Greg Carpenter.
Yeah,
and
works on our team.
Yeah, he's the lead on that. So either contact me or go to the website and then you can get a Workbench account.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so, and I'll start with this and hand it to you. So what the question was, is there any plans to take like a SOC 2 or an ISO and map? And I think that the mapping's already done with the critical controls. But what we're doing ourselves, especially because this is a big space for us with startups in AWS, is we're leveraging the critical controls to do almost like, let's get you, crawl, run, walk type of thing as they're working towards a formal certification. And so we use this for the basic implementations and say, okay, if you're doing these things, if you do the CIS Foundations benchmark, if you go through the IG1, then this starts getting you progressing. And so then at that point, they're already in a good position to say, okay, now I need to hire a consultant to help me get through ISO or an auditor to help me go through SOC 2. These are the kind of the starting blocks. And the other thing that it's done, because the other piece that we've had partners that have struggled with, is that they go and they start operating in AWS and they're secure, but they're not secure to a regulated state. They end up when they really have to go through something like FedRAMP or whatever, they almost have to re-architect. So what we're trying to do is work with our startup communities and our startup teams to say, let's get you started with security from day one. And so you grow with that as your account grows and as your company grows so that they can continue. So that's how we're using it. But
So right now there is no formal certification against controls. We are working on that. We are working on also certifying organizations who can certify against the controls. And we partner with organizations such as AWS so they can say, hey, where's your implementation group on dashboard? And so you can say, this is how compliant you are, this is what you need to do to become compliant. We do have a controls assessment specification, which describes what you have to measure to show compliance against the controls. And we share that, everything we do is shared for free. That's free. If you want the URL, I can hand it over to you. And that's something that we worked with Amazon to say, hey, if you have your IG1 dashboard, can you please be CAS compliant? So organizations can know that they're being compared in the same way to show compliance. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I think I can find it.
So my question is, when you hire them for your services, can you use an inspector to confirm, to validate compliance? Is what you mean by integration?
Yeah, so inspector, so yeah, you can use, the question is, can you use inspector to, within your working in certifications or getting regulated workloads, I think, did I paraphrase that correct? Right, you can run inspector, and then the integration points is, so if you're running a CIS hardened image, like Windows EC2 or Linux or whatever, then the CIS benchmarks are loaded in inspector as a policy. And so then when you scan, just like you would like a Nessus or whatever, you're using that scan policy to say, does this meet the intent of that hardening standard? And so that's typically the use case that we're seeing organizations and our consulting and partners use it for, is that they're putting the CIS benchmark in inspector and then scanning against it. Any other questions? All right. There's no more questions. We'll still be here in the room for a little bit if you have one-offs, and but appreciate your time, and thank you. Hope you guys have a great conference. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.